Mataji, let me know when I should start, okay?
Sure, Mataji, I will let you know. Hare Krishna Mataji, we will start in another 2 minutes, exactly 7:20. Let's wait for others to join.
Sure, Mataji.
Hare Krishna everyone, welcome to Bhagavatam summary sessions. Today we are doing third canto, chapter 22. We have Her Grace Indulekha Karuna Mataji to enlighten us on this topic of third canto, chapter 22, Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you so much Mataji for your valuable time and association this evening and enlightening us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. I now hand over the call to you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for giving this opportunity to learn and present on the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'd like to thank the organizers, Her Grace Preeti Vilasni Mataji, Her Grace Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, and His Grace Sundarananda Prabhu for making this possible and for encouraging all of us to participate and to present on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we will be summarizing the third canto, 22nd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we'll start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati Uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangriye Shinvatam swakatha Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridayantastho hyabhadrani vidunoti suritsatam. Ajnanatimirandhasya jnananjanashalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swami Niti Namine Namacharya Padaya Nithaya Kripa Pradayane Gaurakatha Dhamadhaya Nagra Gramadharine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshadharine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay, thank you so much. So we will get started with the 22nd chapter. And this is the marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. So in the last few chapters, what we have been seeing is how Vidura and Maitreya, they are having a conversation. And in this conversation, Vidura has asked Maitreya, right? Can you explain more about the lineage of Swayambhuva Manu? And he wants to know about all of the children of Swayambhuva Manu. So like that, Maitreya Muni, he starts explaining, he talks about Swayambhuva Manu, and he goes to speak about Kardama Muni and what he did. So in the last chapter, that's where we were at. We talk about how Kardama Muni, he executed severe devotional service and penance to the Supreme Lord for over 10,000 years, and the Lord personally appeared. And Kardama Muni, he tells him, he expresses his desire. What was his desire? He was desiring to be married to a suitable lady, a suitable lady. And so the Lord himself, he blesses Kardama Prajapati that yes, that is going to happen. And in a few days, Swayambhuva Manu himself, along with his wife and his daughter, would come and he will offer you his child in marriage. So, and then the Lord says that, yes, after this, I also give you the special benediction that I will also appear as your own child. So Kardama Muni is aware of all these things. And towards the end of the last chapter, the 21st chapter, we see that Swayambhuva Manu has come to Bindu Sarovar, the place where Kardama Muni is. And they have a they have an introductory conversation. So we are going to see the rest of it today and what, how things proceed. So this is a small chapter with 39 verses, but Srila Prabhupada's purpose always, there's plenty to churn, and that Srila Prabhupada has churned out from each and every verse. So on the screens, I will be showing you what is there from Subodhini mostly, but we will be looking at the purpose of Srila Prabhupada also. Okay, so let's get started. So this is Maitreya Muni speaking. So first, Maitreya Muni, he's giving the chapter starts with Maitreya Muni saying that, okay, so now after Kardama Muni, when he met Swayambhuva Manu, he started glorifying Swayambhuva Manu about how great he is. And after he finished glorification, Swayambhuva Manu, Kardama Prajapati, he was quiet, and Swayambhuva Manu, he started feeling a little embarrassed, when he heard his own glories. And so he addressed the sage. And this is the second verse from the chapter. Manur uvacha brahma srijat svamukhato yusman atma paripshaya chandomayastapo vidya yoga yuktan alampatan. So Manu replied that to expand himself in Vedic knowledge, Lord Brahma, the personified Veda, from his face created you, the Brahmanas, who are full of austerity, knowledge, and mystic power, and are averse to sense gratification. And he also says that for protecting all of you, all the Brahmanas, the Lord has then created the next varna, which is the Kshatriyas. So that's why we have a slight depiction of where the different varnas have come from the Lord. Okay, so here, what is Manu is saying that the Brahmanas are the most, the cream of the society, and they are equivalent to the heart of the Supreme Lord. He says that the Brahmanas are the heart and the Kshatriyas are his arms. So they are going to protect each other. And so when they protect each other, the Lord is also going to give them their protection. So why are the Brahmanas so important? Okay, because the Brahmanas are the ones who are propounding this Vedic knowledge. They are the ones who are full of this Vedic knowledge. They have a lot of mystic powers, and they are not involved in any sense gratificatory activities. The purpose of the Brahmanas is to completely spread this knowledge of the Vedas, and in that process, while they are spreading the knowledge of the Vedas, they are actually propagating the glories of the Supreme Lord around the world. So these Brahmanas, there are actually two kinds of occupations. Okay, so here he says yoga yuktan alampatan. So why is he saying that specifically? Because they are completely averse to sense gratification. That's what he has mentioned here in the translation. So there are two kinds of occupations that we can have. One is, in this material world, we have sense gratificatory activities, and that is one kind of occupation that we would be involved with. And the other kind of occupation is spiritual activity, the occupation where we are involved in only gratifying the Supreme Lord. How do we do that? By spreading the Lord's glories. So Brahmanas are completely engaged in this process of spreading the glories of the Supreme Lord. Those who are engaged, Srila Prabhupada, these are all Srila Prabhupada's words from the purport, from the purports. So he says that those who engage in sense gratificatory activities are called the demons, and those who spread the glorification of the Lord, who are meant to satisfy the Lord, the transcendental senses of the Lord, they are known as demigods. So the Brahmanas, they are created from the face of the Virat Purusha, who is the cosmic manifestation. So here the Brahmanas are said to be from the face and the Kshatriyas are from the arms. So the waist is where the Vaishyas come from, and from the legs, the Shudras. So the Brahmanas, they are specially meant for austerity, they are meant for learning, they are meant for knowledge, and they do not perform any sense gratification. So that's what he was saying. And he says that, see, the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas, they have to work very work in sync. They have to cooperate with one another. So how do they do that? The Kshatriyas make sure that the Brahmanas are protected, and when the head is protected, then the entire society can flourish, right? So once the Brahmanas are taken care of by the Kshatriyas, and the Brahmanas support the Kshatriyas in their decision making, then what happens? Then all the classes, the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, everybody can make sufficient progress and they all will flourish. So why are the Brahmanas so considered so very important? Because the Lord himself considers them most dear. Krishna says, Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, right? So the Lord is described as the one who protects the Brahmanas and the cows. And after that, they say Jagadithaya Krishnaya, right? So he protects all the other members of the society after his first two, the most prominent two, the Brahmanas and the cows. So it is because it is the Supreme Lord's desire that all the Brahmanas are protected, and the cows are also, obviously. Supreme Lord has given so much importance to cow protection, and he says these are actually our most important and basic principles for any human civilization to prosper. So the duty of the Kshatriyas is to make sure that they protect the Brahmanas. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada has written lots about this, and he says, see, we are all individual souls, and so we all have some differences. But the one similarity in all of us is the existence of the super soul. We all may differ, but the super soul is the same in each and every one of us, right? So everybody may be engaged in many different activities based on their vasanas, based on their propensities, but what happens is all of them should be in cooperation. We should all try to make sure that we cooperate with each other. Why? Because when we do that, then we are able to please the super soul within us, the Paramatma within us. And then the Paramatma will itself give all of us protection. So it is like we are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, right? And so our responsibility is to make sure that we completely please the Supreme Lord. So just, if the hands say, we have seen this analogy many times, that if the food that has to go to the stomach, okay, if the food goes to the stomach, then it helps all parts of the body. But if tomorrow the fingers say, okay, I'm the one who is putting that food in the mouth, so I am going to decide that I am going to take this food for myself instead of giving it to the stomach, then what happens? Then there is complete dysfunction. So in the same way, all the individual souls are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. So the relationship between the Supreme Lord and the soul and the individual souls is that of master and servant. So when we are satisfying the Supreme Lord, he is pleased, then everybody is pleased and taken care of, completely protected. So that is why this whole idea of Varnashrama Dharma has been instituted also. So here we see that he says, okay, so after this, Swayambhuva Manu says, oh, now you have resolved all my doubts. Okay, by meeting you, I you have kindly, shared, you have kindly imparted the knowledge that I need. And I have heard this very, very attentively. Okay, so he is appreciating and he is expressing his gratitude to Kardama Muni. Okay, so uh, Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that this is the result of seeing a great saintly person. When we see a saintly person, all the doubts in our mind will be cleared. Okay, so even Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that we should always try to associate with saintly people, because then if we have this association, then even within a moment we might be able to attain perfection. So that is the mission of our human life. Mission of the human life is to somehow or the other make sure that we are in contact with saintly people, and we are able to please them, we are able to achieve their favor. Once that is done, then the purpose of our human life is completely fulfilled. And Srila Prabhupada, he always tries to make sure that he reminds us of his own spiritual master and his life. So he says, see, there is a proof to this. It is not just a statement that is there, that is listed in our scriptures. It is a proven fact. Why? Because he personally had the opportunity to meet his spiritual master, who is Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj. And because of the order of his spiritual master, every one of us is engaged in executing devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So how? Because his spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada's supreme spiritual master, he gave the instruction to Srila Prabhupada to preach all around, to preach to the Western world. And Srila Prabhupada was able to execute that by the association of a saintly person. So he has the power, because of his own spiritual advancement. A saintly person can give immediate liberation to the conditioned soul, as we have seen how Srila Prabhupada himself has done. Like, he's being so humble and he's talking about his spiritual master. But to us, as we see the impossible being achieved by Srila Prabhupada, we know the power of a saintly person. So now Manu decides that he is going to get to the crux of the matter, the reason why he is here. So he says, by great fortune, I have been able to attain your auspicious, your very rare association, right? Now, it is very rare to get in touch with the great saintly people, especially sages like Kardama Muni, who live in a different environment. And so he says, I have been able to touch the dust of your lotus feet in my head, and you have given me perfect instructions. And those instructions I have heard with open ears, he says, karuna randrena. Now we look at what Srila Prabhupada had to say in this section. And so he says that just by, and this is very important, because he says, by touching the holy feet of the lotus, the holy dust from the lotus feet of a holy man, we can achieve all perfection. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 5th canto, 12th chapter, Bharat Maharaj tells Rahugana that unless one has the opportunity to smear their entire body with the dust from the lotus feet of a great devotee, one cannot realize the absolute truth. In spite of observing celibacy, following so many rules and regulations, leaving the home as a vanaprastha, or accepting sannyasa, doing so many penances, doing so many different things, nothing is going to happen. Because we have still not attained the opportunity of smearing that dust. So let us make sure that this absolute truth that is so sacred is revealed to us. And how will that happen? By the mercy of a great devotee of the Lord. So, and this can be achieved through the parampara system. And this is very important because that is the sure short measure of us achieving spiritual success by following the disciplic succession and finding the perfect spiritual master. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his prayers in Guru Ashtakam, he says, Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasya aprasadat na gati kutopi. So just by the mercy of the spiritual master, we can be benedicted with the mercy of Lord Krishna. But what happens if we don't have the grace of the spiritual master? Yasya aprasadad, right? If we don't have the grace of the spiritual master, then one cannot make any advancement. So it is absolutely crucial that we take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and we work under his direction faithfully and sincerely. Like we all know about this very, very important Bhagavad Gita verse 434. Tadvidhi pranipatena pari prashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshina. So we need to make sure that we inquire from the spiritual master how, in a mode of submission. We should be very submissive when we are inquiring. And we have to make sure that we render some service to the spiritual master. And then they would be able to impart the absolute truth to us. Now, just by their mercy, we would be recipients of the greatest knowledge, the most important, the absolute truth. And so he says, okay, I have heard all your instructions with open ears. So this is very, very important because it is all the knowledge that we get is through our ears, right? We have to receive this transcendental message through oral reception. So karna randrena means through the holes of the ears. So we receive the favor of the spiritual master by the ears, not from any other part of the body. And so the spiritual master has got a very, he has this ability to identify and understand what our tendencies are. And based on our tendency to act, the spiritual master makes sure that he engages us in a particular kind of service. Srila Prabhupada has explained that very beautifully in the purport, and he talks about how so many different departments of Krishna are there in Krishna consciousness. And the spiritual master makes sure that he trains each and every disciple in such a way that he acts in his tendency to act is perfected in that particular way. And so even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna in the 18th chapter towards the end, he says that just by utilizing your ability, what was Arjuna's ability? Arjuna had the great ability in martial arts. So he was able to, he was a very great warrior, right? So Krishna made sure that he used that ability of Arjuna so that he can achieve the highest perfection in spiritual life. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur over there, he says that by faithfully executing the instructions that one receives from the spiritual master, one can attain perfection. This is the only duty of the disciple. The disciple should make sure that they are perfectly executing, actually faithfully executing the instruction that the spiritual master has given us. So then our life will be successful. So we need to make sure that we are listening carefully, that we are making sure that we, through the years, we are receiving that instruction from the spiritual master, and then we can execute it faithfully. So then now Swayambhuva Manu comes to the point that, oh, see, I have come here for a reason. So here Swayambhuva Manu, he is the disciple here, right? And he is looking at Kardama Muni as the spiritual master. So sometimes what happens is, if you are executing the orders of the spiritual master very perfectly, then you have the right to ask a favor from the spiritual master. Okay, but generally pure devotees of the Lord or a pure disciple of the spiritual master, he would not ask for a favor. Srila Prabhupada specifically says this in the purport, that he would not ask a favor from the Lord or from the spiritual master. But even if there is a need to ask a favor from the spiritual master, we need to make sure that we satisfy him fully and then we ask. So here, Swayambhuva Manu has satisfied this Kardama Muni fully. So he is now asking for, Kardama Muni to accept Devahuti. So he says, oh, you please accept Devahuti. And he states the reasons. First he says, my daughter is the sister of Priyavrita and Uttanapada. So why, here is he talking about, oh, she is the sister of somebody else, of Priyavrita, of Uttanapada? Because he wants to establish that, oh, my daughter is coming from a great family. There are great Kshatriyas in our family. And she's not coming from any, ordinary family. So then he says, she is seeking a suitable bride in terms of age, character, and good qualities. So this is what we need to also make sure that we look for when we are searching for, marriage for whoever, children, whatever. So here Devahuti has expressed her desire that she wants to find somebody who matches her character, who matches her, her age and her qualities. And so the father has decided that, yes, he's very affectionate for the child. So he makes sure that it is my duty to take charge of this and find the husband that my daughter is looking for. Now, Devahuti had actually heard about Kardama Prajapati from Narada Muni. So she heard, how beautiful his appearance was. His character is, he's very noble character, how learned a person he is, and she learned about all of his other virtues. And once she heard about him from Narada Muni, her mind was completely fixed upon Kardama Prajapati. And so he said, okay, so here Devahuti, again, see, we have Manu is also focusing on hearing. So he says, I have listened to what you are saying with open ears. And see, my daughter Devahuti, she also heard from Narada Muni. So it is not, in those days, they did not get to see who their, prospective bridegroom would be, because that was not the way society was in those days. But they would get to hear about great personalities. And here Devahuti was fortunate to hear about Kardama Muni straight from Narada Muni. And so when we hear from an authority, that is a much better experience than directly gaining a personal understanding by seeing. And from then she had fixed her mind on marrying Kardama Muni. Okay, so he says, oh, please, so then accept her. She is going to be, she's giving more reasons. She says that she will be a suitable wife for you. She's going to execute all the household duties in life. So here it's like, okay, the household duty of a man is to make sure that he is not just simply satisfying his own senses. He needs to make sure that he takes care of his family by his wife and his children, and at the same time attains advancement in spiritual life. And Srila Prabhupada says that the duty of the wife is to take charge of the household affairs, and she should not compete with her husband. And he says, oh, see, not to deny an offering that has come of its own accord is not commendable, even to a person who is detached. What to speak of a person desiring the object? So here Manu is indirectly explaining to Kardama Muni that I know that you have a desire. You want a suitable wife like my daughter. And now I am presenting you to her. So you should not reject this, because then then what happens? Because then later, when you reject such an offering that has come of its own accord, and then you say, oh, okay, later on, I am going to beg from somebody else, and that person ends up being a miser who is not going to treat you so well, then your pride is humbled because of their behavior. So Swayambhuva Manu is explaining to Kardama Muni that, see, this is very important that you accept this particular proposal because I am coming to you. And Srila Prabhupada says that in the Vedic system, it is not very honorable for a boy to go and seek the hand of a of a girl, go to the girl's father and ask for the daughter's hand. It is more respectable for actually the father to come and offer the girl to the father to come and offer his daughter to the boy. Okay, so and here we see that Swayambhuva Manu, he's the emperor of the world. Okay, but he wants to give his qualified daughter to a very poor Brahmana. What was the qualification that Kardama Muni had when we look at it from worldly possessions? He was a hermit. He lived in a very small home and he lived in the forest when compared to her. Okay, but he was very advanced in his culture. And so, in offering his daughter's hand, the culture and quality is more important of the person, not wealth, not any material consideration. So, right now we have it all reversed, but still. Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing, make sure that this is what you should look for. And then he says, oh, I heard that you are prepared to marry. So you have not taken a vow of perpetual celibacy, right? We know about two kinds of celibacy. One is Naishtika Brahmacharya, or, there are two kinds of brahmacharis or celibates. Naishtika Brahmachari is one who would take a vow of celibacy throughout their life, right? We have the great example of Bhishmacharya himself. But the other, who is known as a Upakurvana Brahmachari, he takes the vow to be a celibate until a particular age. And after that, he can enter into married life. So Kardama Muni has not taken any vow of Naishtika Brahmacharya, so he can definitely marry. And Swayambhuva Manu is not requesting something wrong from him. So he has presented Kardama Muni with his daughter. Okay. So Kardama Muni then says, okay, I am going to accept your daughter Devahuti for these reasons. Okay, so he said, yes, I have a desire to marry your daughter. I have a desire to marry, and your daughter, she has not given a vow to anybody else. She has not given her word to anyone else. So she is, available. And so that is okay. Our marriage can take place. And then he said, let the desire of your daughter that's recognized in the Vedic scripture be fulfilled. And he says, who is going to reject her? Her bodily luster is so exquisite. She can excel the beauty of her ornaments. She excels the beauty of her ornaments. And he narrates an incident that happened that he had heard. So he says that she is so beautiful that even Vishwavasu, who is a Gandharva, he was stunned by her beauty and he fell from his airplane. So what happened was Devahuti was playing on the top of a palace, on the terrace of a palace, on the roof of a palace. She was playing with a ball. So while she was playing, now Srila Prabhupada says that in those days also there were very high-rise buildings. Huh? So there were high-rise buildings, and the girls, especially only very royal girls belonging to a very high-class family, only they have the ability to play ball. So it's and girls normally would not be involved in playing such games outside. They can play it in their terrace, on the rooftops, or somewhere that's a little more enclosed, in an enclosed space. And so that's what was happening. So she was playing ball on the rooftop, and Vishwasu was traveling in his airplane. And Vishwavasu from his airplane. So Srila Prabhupada says, if he has to see a person from his airplane, then that building that she's standing on itself would be so tall. It would be such a high-rise building. That's how Vishwavasu was able to see her. And when he saw her, he was so stunned by her beauty that he actually fell from his airplane. So, Srila Prabhupada has a very sweet purport there. And he says she was so beautiful with her tinkling ankle bells and her eyes moving to and fro. And then Kardama Muni says, oh, what wise man would not welcome her? She is the ornament of womanhood. She is the beloved daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. She is the sister of Uttanapad. So he's praising all the qualifications of Devahuti. He said that even those who have not worshipped the goddess of fortune, they cannot even perceive her. But here, Devahuti has personally come of her own accord to seek my hand. So how can I not accept her? And so he accepts, and he puts forth a condition. What is this condition? This is where everything changes for Devahuti also, right? And as we will see in the later chapters. And the condition that he puts is, once she bears my offsprings, then, and once an offspring is born to us, then I am going to go back and lead a life of devotional service. That is the most perfect process that Lord Vishnu himself has described. And so that is what I want to do. So he is not going to be a lifelong householder. That's not his plan at all. And he is explaining that even before he gets into married life, that this is my condition, this is what I am going to do. So he knows, because the Supreme Lord had mentioned in the previous chapter, Supreme Lord blessed him that he is going to get, he's going to appear as the child of Kardama Muni, right? And so he said, yes, once this child is born, then I have to leave household life, because I have to go and perform my duties of devotional service to the Lord. That's his eternal occupation, and that's what he wants to do. So Srila Prabhupada explains that there are two kinds of children that can be born to a very good father. One is a person who is completely educated in Krishna consciousness, so he can then deliver all the other people from the clutches of Maya. And the other is one who is a ray of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who is able to teach the world what the ultimate goal of life is. So we will see in the future chapters that Kardama Muni received such a child, Kapila, who is the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he taught the principles of the philosophy of Sankhya. And so he says, the highest authority for me is the unlimited Supreme Lord, who does creation, maintenance, and dissolution. He is the origin of all the Prajapatis, the personalities meant to produce living entities in this world. So Kardama Muni was saying that, see, I know my father is a Prajapati, and he is the one who has desired that we all have to produce children. Okay, but his origin is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and at Vishnu, he is the origin of everything. He is the actual creator of this universe. He is the one who administers and maintains this universe. He is the one who is there after everything is annihilated. Everything is resting in Lord Vishnu himself. So we know that there are three there are the three, Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva, who take charge of creation, maintenance, and destruction. But ultimately, everything comes from Lord Vishnu. Lord Brahma also comes from Lord Vishnu, and all the responsibilities that all three of them perform also are ultimately resting in the Supreme Lord. So, only Lord Vishnu can satisfy all the innumerable desires of all the living entities. So Kardama Muni, he knows that he has a responsibility, and his responsibility is to make sure that he has enough progeny that he is able to continue and sustain this world with more and more people, right? So, and by marrying and by begetting children, we are able to liquidate that debt to the family that we are born in. So, Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that there are many debts that are imposed upon a child just after they are born. Okay, those are the debts to the family in which one is born, the debts to the demigods, debts to the pitas, the debts to the rishis, etc. But if we engage in service to the Supreme Lord, then even without trying to, so in our life, we need to try and make sure that we liquidate all these debts, right? We try and fulfill and satisfy everyone who has given us this responsibility. But by serving the Supreme Lord, then even if we don't try to liquidate all our debts, we become free from all these obligations. So Kardama Muni, he preferred to devote his life to service to the Supreme Lord. And he just wants to get children so that he can make sure that, okay, he has satisfied his father, and he is not he's fulfilling the desire of his father, but at the same time he's making sure that his service, he doesn't forget his service. He doesn't forget that, oh, eternally I want to serve the Supreme Lord. So after speaking like this and telling that, see, this is all I am only, for me the highest authority is the Supreme Lord, and I want to dedicate my life to that. Kardama Muni then becomes silent again because he was thinking of the Supreme Lord. And at this time, Devahuti, she was silently capturing the beautiful smiling face of Kardama Muni. And so then Swayambhuva Manu, he understood, okay, Shatarupa and Devahuti have decided that they want this to happen. So he decides, okay, yes, I am going to make sure that gladly I'm going to offer my daughter to Kardama Muni. So he made a great presentation of so many a lot of jewelry, a lot of clothes, and this was given by the empress, the Shatarupa. So she dressed up the bride so beautifully, and she gave a lot of dowry to both the bride and the bridegroom. And she gave household articles, she gave clothes, so many things. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that this custom is still current in India, and gifts have to be given according to the position of the father of the bride. So it is a show of goodwill, and it is compulsory. And he says that in a rare occasion where the father of the bride cannot give dowry, then he should at least give a flower and a fruit. So in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord can be pleased by Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. And so when there is a financial instability, or if somebody is not able to give the necessary dowry, then we give a flower and a fruit to satisfy the bridegroom. So that's what Srila Prabhupada, and he has detailed some, He has given more details in the purport on this. And so now Swayambhuva Manu, because he has already given his daughter's hand to Kardama Muni, he started feeling an agitation in his heart. Why? Because he had feelings of separation. So he embraced his daughter with both arms, and he started crying. Tears came out from his eyes, and he drenched his daughter's head by saying, "Oh, my dear mother, my dear daughter." So Srila Prabhupada explains that sometimes the father can very affectionately address the daughter as mother. Because why he has so much feeling of affection is because now, until the daughter is married, she remains as the daughter of the father. But after the marriage, she is no longer the daughter in the family. She has to be in the husband's house, and she is the property of the husband. So Manu himself has written in the Manu Samhita that a woman is never independent, and that she should remain with her father until she is married, and with her husband after she is married, and when she is older, and then her grown-up children have to she has to be under the shelter of the grown-up children. And he says that a woman is always dependent on all three. And that can be explained and exhibited. We see this example in the life of Devahuti itself. So first, Swayambhuva Manu, he handed over the responsibility, her responsibility, to her husband, Kardama Muni. And then Kardama Muni, when after his son is born, Kardama Muni, he follows his word. He decides that, yes, I have a son now, I have to leave. And so when he left home, he gave the responsibility of taking care of Devahuti to his son, Kapila Deva. So after asking all this and getting the permission from the sage, Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa, they get on their chariot and they leave for their capital city. So along the way, they see, like last week, we saw how Preeti Vilasini Mataji was explaining about the beauty of the whole place, Bindu Sarovar. And so he saw all the beautiful hermitages. It's such a beautiful, tranquil place, and it was perfect for a saintly person. So Srila Prabhupada was explaining how these neighborhoods are called Rishikulas. So in these Rishikulas, there are great saintly persons who reside. So that's what the neighborhood is called. So it's all hermitages of various great sages would be there. But they were so beautiful that the king was very pleased at its sight. And now that later part of this chapter talks about how Swayambhuva Manu goes back to his kingdom and he rules. So we see what Kardama Prajapati's plan is. Now we know, now we're going to see what Swayambhuva Manu was like. So once Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa Devi, they reached their city, all the subjects from Brahmavarta came to greet the Lord. They came with songs and musical instruments, and we see such a wonderful description of how the citizens of the state came to see Lord Krishna also once he returned to Dwaraka from Hastinapur, right? After all the battle happened, Lord Krishna also returned. And at that time, all the citizens, they went to the gate of the city, and there they welcomed. From there onwards, they welcomed him into the city. In the same way, over here, the citizens of Barhishmati, they came, and they all dressed very nicely to receive their emperor. And there were wonderful decorations in the city, and a lot of musical instruments were being played, and it was a great celebration. Now, this city of Barhishmati, it was very rich in all kinds of wealth, and it was called this because of Lord Vishnu's hair that dropped from his body. So when Lord manifested as Varahadev, he shook his body, and a hair strand fell in this particular place where the city of Barhishmati was. And that turned into blades of kusha grass. and kasa grass. So both of these are used for worshipping the Supreme Lord Vishnu and for sacrifices. So what Swayambhuva Manu did is he spread a seat of kusha grass and kasa grass, and there he started worshipping the Lord, because it was by the Lord's mercy that Swayambhuva Manu has been able to rule the entire planet. And after this, Manu entered the city and he entered his own palace where he lived in an atmosphere that eradicated all the threefold miseries of material existence. So what are the threefold miseries? We know this is miseries pertaining to the body, Adi Devika, Adi Bhautika, and Adhyatmik, right? So we have miseries that come from the mind and body. And then we have the miseries that are pertaining to natural disturbances. And there are miseries that come from other living entities. So these miseries were non-existent in Manu's kingdom, right? So how? Because they led a very Krishna conscious life. So anyone who is, it's not like when we enter into Krishna consciousness, miseries vanish from our life. No, Srila Prabhupada explains very beautifully in the purport that the miseries in this material world will not vanish when we take to Krishna consciousness. But their effect doesn't, we don't feel their effect. So the miseries cannot be stopped. But when we are in Krishna consciousness, that is an antiseptic method to protect us from being affected by the miseries of material existence. His purports are so beautiful, and Srila Prabhupada love the way he words it is so amazing. Krishna consciousness is that antiseptic that we need to apply, that protects us from all the threefold miseries. So after this, Manu, they talk about how long Manu lived and how he ruled. So this Emperor Swayambhuva Manu, he enjoyed life with his wife and his subjects, and he fulfilled all his duties and his desires also without being affected, without being disturbed by all the unwanted principles that were against religion. So he made sure that he enjoyed all the material happiness in a completely, perfectly Krishna conscious way. So our human society itself, so Manu is showing us by example that this human society is meant for realization of perfection in Krishna consciousness. There is no restriction against living with a wife and children, but we need to make sure that we conduct our life in such a way that it does not go against the principles of religion. And that's how the Vedic principles are also designed, so that one can actually live within we know our boundaries, we know what the guidelines are, and we have come into this material world for the purpose of actually going back. And so the Vedas help us as a guide in fulfilling our material desires, and at the same time in finding our way back home, back to Godhead. So Swayambhuva Manu, he was a very saintly king, and he was always, whatever he did, he enjoyed in a Krishna conscious atmosphere, right? Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness, it does not stop people from their propensity to enjoy material life. It just regulates our habit in the life of sense enjoyment. So in spite of being enjoying material things, we get liberated in this particular life by practicing Krishna consciousness, by chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And so he had a very, very long life. So the lifespan of Manu it consists of a full Manvantara. And he did not spend it in vain. He was constantly engaged in hearing, in contemplating, in writing, and chanting the pastimes of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada, he gives us an analogy. Food that is freshly prepared is very tasty. But if we keep it for 3 to 4 hours, it becomes stale and it becomes tasteless. In the same way, the existence in material life, it can endure, all this material enjoyment. It's okay as long as our life is fresh. But what happens when we are reaching the end of our life? Everything becomes tasteless. Everything becomes very painful. Everything becomes very vain. We feel like, oh, there's no point in living. But Empress Swayambhuva Manu, although he lived for a very, very long time, we'll look at how long he lived in the next verse. Although he lived for a very long time, his life was not tasteless. Why? Even as he grew older, his life remained as fresh as it was in the beginning, just because of his continued acceptance and following of Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada says the life of a man in Krishna consciousness is always fresh. So he did not become stale. Life did not become stale. He engaged himself in continuously chanting, meditating upon the Supreme Lord. And he was the greatest yogi because he did not waste any time. He only talked about Krishna. He only talked about the personality of God. And whenever he meditated, he was thinking about the Supreme Lord and all of his activities. And now this Manu, his lifetime lasts 71 cycles of, so one mantra is 71 cycles of 4 yugas. One Chatur Yuga is 4,320,000 years. And his life lasted 71 times that. And throughout this period, he constantly thought about Vasudeva. He constantly engaged in all the things related to Vasudeva. And so he attained he attained the final destination. He transcended all the 3 different destinations. So Srila Prabhupada explains what those 3 destinations are. It would be for the people who are under the 3 modes of material nature. And he said that these destinations are sometimes called as awakened, dreaming, and unconscious state. But most specifically, he talks about how in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the 3 destinations are not 14th chapter. And the 3 destinations are the destinations of persons in the 3 modes, the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So those in the mode of goodness, they are promoted to higher, the higher planetary systems. Those in the mode of passion, they continue to remain in this material world or on heavenly planets where they can actually continue to be constantly engaged. But those in the mode of ignorance, they either get degraded into animal life or to planets that are lower than humans. But what happens is when one is in Krishna consciousness, then they transcend all the 3 modes of material nature, and they are in the Brahma Buddha stage of self-realization. So he says, oh, Vidura, Maitreya Muni is concluding, how can persons who are always under the shelter of Lord Krishna in devotional service be put into miseries pertaining to the body, the mind, nature, other men, and living creatures? So every living entity is always affected by some kind of misery, right? All these distresses, they keep coming. We know Matra Sparshastu Kaunteya, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkada. But one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is in Krishna consciousness, he is transcendental to all these disturbances. So he says that Swayambhuva Manu, he, out of compassion for all the living entities, when the rishis kept asking him questions, he taught what the sacred duties of men are in general and what the duties of the various varnas and ashramas are. And the Maitreya tells Vidrasi, I have now spoken about the wonderful character of Swayambhuva Manu. First, he spoke about the character of Kardama Muni. Now he's talking about the character of Swayambhuva Manu. And he says, next, you listen to me speaking about his daughter, the great Devahuti. So thus we end this chapter presentation on the third canto, 22nd chapter. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not realize that the screen share got stopped. Sorry. Yep. So we will end here. If anyone has any reflections or realizations, you may share it now. Otherwise, we can end. Thank you so much for being here, for encouraging me. And I pray that I would also be able to someday imbibe this lesson from Swayambhuva Manu, where he is constantly meditating on the Supreme Lord, constantly whatever he does, whatever he is, chanting, hearing, meditating, everything is on the Supreme Lord. So in the same way, I pray that we also can continue to constantly meditate on the Supreme Lord. Thank you so much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Indulekha Mataji, Dhanavad Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for a very detailed explanation of the summary of this chapter. It was so nice. Yeah, it was like flowing very nicely. The whole story was able to easily understand. Mataji, I was yesterday also was reading Bhagavatam, the second canto. There also it was explaining about the Lord's body and how the divisions was there, Brahmana, Kshatriya and Shudra, that the first picture you were showing on your slides. I was thinking lotus feet for the devotees are very, very important, right? And Shudra is categorized there, right? I was thinking, so, I mean, usually they say Shudra means it's not, means no value for them. But that is the most dearest place for a devotee to stay. So I don't know how do we understand that. But the Brahmanas are on the top. I mean, devotee is a pure Brahmana, right? But then again, here Shudras are coming down. I was just thinking like that. I don't know how to put my question, but it is so difficult to understand. I don't know if I was able to put my question properly.
Class, Mataji, was so good. You were saying that they had separation, and he was calling her daughter mother because you were saying like that, right? I heard that. I only heard that, but that was so beautiful, Bond, what you said, Mataji.
Thank you so much, because whatever little you heard, you were able to repeat that. So that means you heard it attentively, right? With open ears, like what we heard today.
Yeah. We have to be open ears and following the spiritual master's order. It is very, very important for us to do that. Most important thing for us, all of us, to practice. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you so much. Yes, Mataji, like what you said, we are very fortunate that in this Kali Yuga, we are all Shudras. So we all get to be very close to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, parts of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So,
true,
yeah. But over here, the focus was on how the Brahmanas should be, completely protected and taken care of, because that is the Lord's desire himself. The Lord himself wants the Brahmanas and the cows, obviously, to be protected first. And then he is the protector of everybody. He's a well-wisher of all of us. So that's how it was explained here. So, but
yeah,
so many wonderful devotees on the forum, and if any of them would like
Thank
to.
you, Mataji, for highlighting that point of Lord being the protector of Brahmanas. So that's why they're the topmost. And thank you, Mataji. That's a perfect answer. Yeah. Very, very nice. And also the another thing is most important thing you highlighted is in Kali Yuga, we are all treated to be as Shudras because no perfect Brahmanas are there. That's what we read in Srila Prabhupada's purport. But then ISKCON is training number one first class Brahmanas. So we are aspiring to be like them. One of you, Mataji, soon, if Krishna and Guru's mercy is there, to get the shelter of Guru Maharaj. Yeah, thank you, Mataji, for such a beautiful class. Hare Krishna. Sundakaranta Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, did you want to answer that question? I'm sure you would have so much realization on that. So.
Oh, no, thank you, Mother. I just wanted to share comment only.
Yes,
yeah, thank you so much, Mother. It's a very nice class. I really appreciated how you covered the verse, the context, the storyline, and also the wonderful points Srila Prabhupada raised in the purport. Amazing, Mother. I had a couple of things that were important for me. I appreciated from the class were about Brahmana's qualities. That's how you started in the initial verses, especially the austerity, learning and knowledge, and also the how they are averse to sense gratification also is described.
yes.
So that was a nice qualities I can cultivate. I was thinking, Mate. Yeah, that was the one nice thing I felt from the session. And then, of course, the importance of saintly sadhu association, and especially shelter of spiritual master, hearing from spiritual master and following the instructions faithfully. That also you highlighted very nicely, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity. And I didn't think about it that way, that, okay, yeah, these are qualities that, like what Mataji said, we are all, Srila Prabhupada is training us so that we can be good Brahmanas, good Vaishnavas. So those are qualities we all should aspire for. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dhanavad pranam.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Okay, please go ahead, Mataji.
Rajeshwari Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Pranam.
Dhanavad pranam.
Dhanavad pranam. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Thank you very much for the nice class, Mataji.
Jai Srila
And
Prabhupada.
it is,
Thank you
it
so much.
was really a good revision for us. And our glories to you and Srila Prabhupada. Mataji, actually, I was thinking, Shastra gives rays into the Brahminical culture. Okay, but Prabhupada has given us very minimum, tapas for us to reach to Brahminical culture. Could you kindly clarify into that? Because out of many austerities, we follow very less in this Kali Yuga, other than chanting Harina. So there are many austerities which
Hare Krishna Mataji.
are you able to hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Yes, Mataji, in between you where it was difficult to hear your voice. It was working in between.
So,
but I think
yeah, because Shastras mention a lot of austerities to raise ourselves to Brahminical culture. But out of that, we follow very less according to our spiritual master. We follow very less. So how to take it in a right way?
So Mataji, from my little understanding and from this chapter itself, what we can see is even higher than the Brahmanas. So even in other places too, it's mentioned that even higher than the Brahmanas are the Vaishnavas, first of all, right? And so our aspiration is to become a good Vaishnava. And for that, the most important qualification, as Bharat Maharaj in the form of Jadabharata, when he was explaining to King Rahugana, he says that, see, all this austerity, everything else that we do, all these religious practices that we do is of absolutely no use if we don't smear ourselves with the dust of the lotus feet of the spiritual master. If we don't actually take complete shelter and surrender to the the following the instructions of the spiritual master, and and hearing from the spiritual master, making sure that we are faithful to the spiritual master. Without doing that, we won't be able to make any progress. So what is our ultimate goal? Our ultimate goal is to make sure that we go back and we can continue to render service to the divine couple. So that is our ultimate goal. Whether I am a good Brahmana in this life or not, doesn't matter if I still cannot make it back, right? So that's why this was what I understood. This is my very, very limited understanding. But definitely in the group, we have very wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. If any of you would like to answer further, please feel free. This is an open forum. I'd rather prefer a good discussion than just one answer. Vinita Mataji, did you, Sundaranand Prabhu, please go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add, Madhu, that's a wonderful answer. You covered the essence of devotion service, what is most important for us. That's wonderful. I was also thinking about how devotional service, one of the essential quality of being a Brahmana, like we know from Bhagavad Gita, is that they are situated in mode of goodness, Sattva Guna. So that is what the main characteristics of Brahmana, that they're primarily in Sattva Guna, not even predominantly Sattva Guna, but only Sattva Guna like that. So that means, and we also know from Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter itself, that by doing devotion service, where mode of goodness is gradually increasing and the effect of mode of passion and ignorance also is reducing. So that means just by doing devotion service, like you explained, we're becoming Brahmana, and beyond Brahmana, like Vaishnava also, like you indicated. That's the other aspect of our sharing, Mate. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Rajeshwari
much. Thank you very
Mataji,
much.
was that
Thank you,
okay,
Mataji. Yes, Mataji. Very
Thank
clear it is. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Mataji? Hare Krishna. Okay. Thank you so much.
Is there anybody having any more realizations? Please go ahead. If not, we can close the call for today. Thank you so much, Mataji. Yes, Mataji. Please go ahead, Arita Mataji.
One question, Mataji. Actually, I'm sorry. I joined little bit like almost to the end of the class. So I just wanted to know, like in this context, like what you are telling about this chapter. So here, Kardama Muni is going, like he is renunciating. So to meet him, Swayambhu Manu has come, or how it is, Mataji? I'm sorry, I missed it.
No problem, Mataji. Yes. So this Kardama Muni is in Bindu Sarovar, and there Swayambhuva Manu comes along with his wife and his daughter over there so that he could give his daughter to Kardama Muni in marriage. I hope that helped, Mataji. So Prabhuji, not Prabhuji, Swayambhuva Manu, he comes there.
So it's like Swayambhu Manu is renunciating, that's why he has come here, or there is no consequence?
Okay, so Kardama Muni was so Brahma Ji, first he told Kardama Muni that he needs to bear progeny, right? So for that he has to get married. So Kardama Muni, he does penance, he prays to the Lord that he can actually get married to the right person, and he beget good progeny, right? So for this, then the Lord appears and the Lord blesses him that yes, within a few days, Swayambhuva Manu and his wife will come here with their daughter and they will give their daughter's hand to you. Okay. So after that, Swayambhuva Manu, Shatarupa Devi and their daughter Devahuti come.
Okay.
And Swayambhuva Manu, he gives his daughter to Kardama Prajapati. Okay. That's the conversation that's predominantly happening in this chapter. And then towards the end, they talk about the glories of Swayambhuva Manu, how he lived his life.
Okay.
He has
Okay,
a
ma'am.
very long life, right? So that's all.
Sure, Mataji, I'll go back and listen to the recording also. Thank you. That was a nice question and answer session, and we got to know so many things. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank
Hare
you so
Krishna.
much, Mataji. Dandavad Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Gurudev. Thank you, dear devotees. Thank you so much for your very valuable time, for your very patient listening. We can end the call here.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Once again, I would like to offer my obeisances to you and all the Vaishnavas on the call. Vancha kalpatarobhyasya kripa sindhu bhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta koti Vaishnav vrind ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Her Grace Indulekha Karuna Mataji ki jai. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Anavinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, dear devotees. We will meet again
Hare
next week
Krishna.
with another chapter.